Help support Friendo Club by going to patreon.com/Steven Larson or clicking join at youtube.com/Steven Larson. Access to bonus episodes, question threads for the Going In Raw podcast, and entry to our monthly wrestling predictions challenges. Join the Friendo Club today. Hey, Friendo, Steve here.
And Larson.
Welcome back to Going In Raw Count Out. That's right. This week, given that Money in the Bank is right around the corner, we're going to talk about, not shockingly, Money in the Bank. That's right. And we're going to do a little bit of, speculative fiction here, some revisionist, alternate history type stuff.
No science fiction. There's no time travel involved in this particular episode of Count Out.
No, we're looking at alternate histories. Other stuff happened. So today we're going to look at 10 wrestlers who should have won Money in the Bank, but didn't at the time. Like 10 people who should have won instead of other people that did win.
Exactly. 10 who should have won instead of who actually won.
Not 10 people who have never won and should have. No, we don't care about that.
Well, I mean, that could be another episode, another time. Maybe next year.
There you go. Maybe next year we'll do that one.
We'll title them the same. 10 people who should have won Money in the Bank.
Yeah. Yeah, but never did.
Yeah. In parentheses, but never did.
Let's go ahead and dive into this one, because immediately we're going to start off with a bit of a disagreement. I'm going to change the little subtitle heading here when midway through the entry. We'll go in number 10.
10.
Mustafa Ali in 2019.
So apparently he was supposed to win it, and then it got changed last minute to Brock Lesnar. And so literally the finish of the match saw Mustafa Ali scaling the ladder, about to reach the briefcase. Brock's theme hits. He comes to the ring, knocks Ali off, gets the briefcase for himself. And he was Mr. Money in the Bank.
Now, on one hand, we got the boombox era of Brock Lesnar with the Money in the Bank. On the other hand, we got Brock Lesnar as Mr. Money in the Bank.
Why would Brock need to be Mr. Money in the Bank? Like his history in WWE is, if he wants a title shot, he just gets it.
He just gets a title shot.
And then he cashed in on Seth, only to lose to Seth.
Did he? He cashed in.
So he won it.
Yeah, he won the cash in. You're saying, and then later on, yeah,
and
right.
He cashed in on Seth, won the title from Seth, and then Seth beat him at SummerSlam.
Yeah, right, yeah.
So it's like, all right, what did it all really accomplish?
Ideally, Money in the Bank, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more in this podcast. Ideally, Money in the Bank, somebody who maybe hasn't won a world title yet. Of course, at this point, Brock Lesnar had many under his belt. And maybe somebody a bit newer on the scene, perhaps somebody who's like right there and ready to go. And ideally, and Brock Lesnar's a heel, but ideally like an opportunistic heel. Brock Lesnar never struck me as like Mr. Opportunistic. He's just guy who gets what he wants when he wants it. He doesn't need to cash in on anybody. No. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It did the specter. I will say the specter of Brock Lesnar was kind of interesting, because it was like, oh God, this guy's a monster. He can cash in anytime.
At the same time, he's a monster. He can just bang on somebody's door and demand a title shot at any time. You know what I mean?
Mustafa Ali, I don't know if he was ready for it. So this is where I'm going to veer. All the other ones were in agreement on. This is the one where I'm going to veer, because you're the one who put in Mustafa Ali.
Yeah,
here.
I'm a huge Mustafa Ali fan. Yeah, absolutely. I thought it'd been interesting to see what he could have done as Mr. Money in the Bank. So often, the Money in the Bank briefcase holder is, as mentioned, a heel, usually opportunistic ones, and on the rare occasion when a babyface actually wins it, and maybe this is a reason not to have a babyface win it, historically speaking, is because it's never really been done well. You know what I mean? Like a babyface should be the one who says in advance, I want to cash in at this show. At this
RVD
time.
Is the only babyface that was ever like a really good. I mean, there's probably been others, but like he's the one guy who did it really, really well. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to cash in one night stand against John Cena, and he won. And that's how you do it from a babyface perspective. I know Cena at the time was technically babyface. He wasn't at that show.
No.
But more often than not, if a babyface wins, they still do the opportunistic cash in. It just doesn't quite work. the same way.
It feels
as it
kind
does
of
when
dirty.
a heel does it.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels kind of dirty. There was that time, and I considered him putting on this list too, Big E, where he tweeted out. I mean, this is it. Vince got even Vince didn't even understand really the actual purpose of Twitter or how Twitter could be used. It was just like, hey, let's pop a rating. Tell everybody you're going to cash in on Twitter, and then we'll do that so people will tune in. And then, of course, they completely botched Big E's world title run, but that's a different conversation. I've got a different name here.
All right.
That I think would have been cool. And he was actually the guy who Brock Lesnar took his spot in this match. And that, of course, was Sami Zayn. Mm-hmm. So Sami Zayn, with help from like Baron Corbin and somebody else, I forget, beat Braun Strowman for this particular spot. And then during the actual pay-per-view, somebody hung him upside down. He was taken to a local medical facility. And then Michael Cole was like, who's going to take his place? I don't know if anybody's going to take his place. Maybe somebody won't take his place. And then we got what we got, where Mustafa Ali is up there doing the cat batting at the toy thing.
Yeah.
And then Lesnar's music hits. And Mustafa Ali, instead of just grabbing the damn thing, just sits there looking like an asshole, gets tipped over, and then Brock wins. But Sami Zayn, I think, is probably the name. Because if you look at like the champions at the time, it was Kofi and Seth. And obviously, Brock ended up beating Kofi in October, a bit later, in a match that everybody hated. I feel like if it was somebody like Sami Zayn cashing in on Kofi Kingston, well, you might have something there. There might be an actual feud there that they follow up on.
Yeah.
And Sami Zayn as that sort of version of Sami Zayn, which is like bad guy Sami Zayn, opportunistic Sami Zayn as world champion, I kind of like that idea. And I think that Sami Zayn has been ready for that spot for a long time. Now, obviously, we're getting something much different with Sami Zayn, but he could easily be slotted into that World Heavyweight Championship scene right now. And I think he was there in 2019 as well. It's just Vince was Vince.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. That's sort of a name that I really like as well.
It's not a bad name. That was in the midst of his conspiracy theorist phase, I believe.
I think so, yeah.
Where he was doing some interesting stuff. You give him something to work with, and Sami Zayn does it 100%.
He'll always make something really good out of it.
He will. So I can see that. Yeah.
Let's move on now to number 9.
9.
Jeff Hardy in 2007. Larson, who won it instead?
Mr. Gotta hold the mic here. Mr. Kennedy.
Kennedy.
That didn't really work out for Mr. Kennedy terribly.
No.
He ended up getting annihilated by Edge on an episode of Raw or SmackDown to lose the briefcase because he had an injury misdiagnosed.
Yeah.
An arm injury. Ended up he just had like a contusion or something like that.
It was like a bruise, and they said it was like a rip, a ligament tear or something. I don't know what it was.
So he had to lose the briefcase to Edge. Edge would eventually cash in on Undertaker. That was a second successful cash in. But what if Jeff Hardy, who at that point I don't think had been world champion at that point.
Yeah.
I think it was later in 2007 he won it for the first time. Had won Money in the Bank at WrestleMania 23. And coming out of WrestleMania 23, we had John Cena as WWE champion, Undertaker, as the World Heavyweight champion.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to fast forward a little bit. Jeff Hardy's ascent to world champion. Have him have that Money in the Bank briefcase. Perfect situation where he wins it next night on Raw or whatever on SmackDown. Has a promo. I'm cashing this in SummerSlam, whatever the case may be, so I can be world champion for the first time. I think that'd be pretty awesome.
Jeff Hardy's also one of those guys that, like, I don't know. I feel like he could be a babyface cashing in an opportunistic way. And because, him and Matt were kind of always, even Jeff Hardy, even during his run, kind of, when you see, for example, Brock Lesnar's debut, he's just throwing the Hardys around.
Yeah.
Because he's an undersized guy compared to a lot of the other people there, certainly the Undertaker and I guess to a degree, John Cena, who is like jacked and, a big dude, certainly seen as like a Superman type. An opportunistic cash in right there would kind of work. I don't even know that he needs to do the call out cash in. He could, you cash in on the Undertaker. That's kind of scary business right there because he's spooky guy.
Yeah.
So I think that could have worked either way. And yeah, I think people, as we saw, his title run was pretty popular. People really liked Jeff Hardy, and they liked him as a world title guy.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think a guy like that, ready to break out, like you said, he wanted it later down the line anyways, not that long afterwards.
It was 2008, December 2008, I believe.
Okay, yeah.
That's when he won it for the first time, a triple threat match against Edge and Triple H. Yeah. So
yeah. I feel like because I think Edge and Taker end up main eventing WrestleMania the following
they
year
did main event a WrestleMania
as a result
time,
of all this stuff.
Yeah.
So Jeff Hardy versus Undertaker. I know Edge was like their main event player, but like getting another guy that people would really latch onto. Jeff Hardy versus Undertaker. That's some good stuff right there.
It is some good stuff. It would be some good stuff.
Revisiting that.
Exactly.
All right. Well, let's move on now to number 8. Christian
at last. He's Mr. Money in the Bank.
He can still go high. Look at that.
Yeah, on a rare occasion, I can get it done. Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Rolling Stones, Jack Swagger had won it that year. So this is when they had
they had 3 Money in the Bank matches in 2010. So we're talking about the one here at WrestleMania 26 that Jack Swagger won. It was Kane and it was Miz who won later at the themed pay-per-view later in 2010.
Wait a second. Oh man, we got 2 of the 2010s in here.
I know.
Who was was the other one Dolph?
Dolph was 2011.
Who was the other?
Kane.
Kane.
It was Kane and Miz, yeah.
Okay, Kane ended up with that pretty decent cash in against.
He cashed
Rey
in
Mysterio.
like a half hour or 45 minutes after he won the briefcase. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it's the first time that happened the day of the show.
Yeah, I'm good with that one. But yeah, let's talk about this one. So Jack Swagger, I don't know what Vince McMahon was thinking. I guess new things. Hey, oh yeah, see this guy? You remind me of Lex Luger.
Well,
whatever.
he had. I mean, I guess maybe it was Jack Swagger had the amateur wrestling
credentials.
And maybe given the success that Kurt Angle had about a decade prior in WWE with another highly, highly accomplished amateur wrestler, they thought, oh, here, we'll get Jack Swagger, and he can do the same. There's one major difference between Jack Swagger and Kurt Angle.
Yeah.
Kurt Angle had personality.
Charisma. Yeah. Yeah, just tons.
And a lot of it.
Tons of charisma. And Jack Swagger really didn't have much of that at all. Christian, on the other hand, again, a great name that had, I think, 2 pretty short World Heavyweight Championship runs, but you can't tell me that he wouldn't have been absolutely perfect. The heel persona Christian especially, perfect with Money in the Bank. I mean, you see that now, like, obviously he's an AEW, but if we had anything resembling the version of Christian now, which for a big portion of his WWE time, he was a bad guy.
Yeah.
And I mean, he just absolutely would have been perfect. Absolutely perfect for Money in the Bank.
Yeah. I mean, we could have a situation here. I'd have to look at the card again, but coming out of the WrestleMania here, WrestleMania 26, had Cena, you had Jericho as champions, but Jericho beat Edge at that WrestleMania to win the World Heavyweight Championship.
Oh, yeah.
So if, again, I have to look at the order of the matches again, if Christian had won Money in the Bank, it's like, hey, at least tease a cash in against his old tag team partner, Edge. That could have been pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, who knows what would happen if he'd cashed in on Jericho at some point later down the line.
Well, it was, yeah, no, that was 3rd on the card, and then Jericho Edge was 7th on the card.
Okay.
So that absolutely
at the least they could have teased, yeah.
That would have been pretty fascinating stuff. That would have been really, really good stuff. I mean, it's kind of crazy, like, the fact that I don't think we ever got an Edge versus Christian match at Mania, certainly. I don't think, or did we?
I don't believe so, no.
Could be wrong about that. But yeah, that could have been like a forever type feud, kind of like what they try to do there in AEW. But yeah, no, I think Christian, the fact that he was never Mr. Money in the Bank, it's just seemed one of those that, like, oh man, he really should have been. Like, he would have been perfect for that.
I know. I'm happy you're coming around to reevaluating Christian's career and seeing, yes, he did some good stuff prior to AEW.
I've never said he didn't do good stuff. Never
All
said
right.
that. And
All
I
right.
don't appreciate you turning this forum into, trying to gotcha. You're trying to gotcha me? Is that what you're doing? You're trying to Simon gotcha me? All right, man. Let's go ahead. And the audio crowd, they can't see the shitty look on your face.
The shrug and shitty look. Sorry, audio crowd. How would you describe it, Steve?
Shitty.
little
Kind
more
of
detail.
a De Niro constipation type thing there.
Yeah, that about evaluates it accurately, yes.
All right. Well, let's move on then. Number 7.
7.
Dean Ambrose in 2013. This is kind of controversial because the guy who did win it that year, big favorite of both of ours, Damian Sandow. He had that leather-bound briefcase and everything.
Yeah, that aspect of his reign, if you will, as Mr. Money in the Bank, great. But everything else, garbage. To no fault of Damian Sandow. I think he won 1 of 13 matches after he won the ladder match.
Did I say Sandow or Priest? I said Sandow, right?
I think so. Sandow.
Okay,
Damian Sandow. Damian Sandow, 2013. He won in the ladder match for the World Heavyweight Championship. He eventually tried to cash in on John Cena, got utterly humiliated.
Oof.
Utterly humiliated during that match. John Cena beat him with basically one arm.
Yeah.
That
That was
Dean
horrible,
Ambrose,
by the way.
this
That was so bad. Yeah.
It was awful. This is in the midst of the height, you could argue, of the Shield's or nearing the height of the Shield's popularity. I believe they were still heels. Ambrose at the time was U.S. champ. Imagine Dean with that briefcase with Rollins and Reigns backing him up. You're talking about the specter of certain cash in.
Yeah.
You're not facing one person to defend your title. You're facing 3.
Yeah, man. You're going to get that triple power bomb through the announce table before he cashes in. And then he does that. And like you said, the champion of the time of this was Alberto Del Rio. I don't know why Vince rolled the dice on him so often. But yeah, no, I think that could have been really awesome. Del Rio, triple power bomb through announce table after his match against Dolph Ziggler. Yeah, and then you got a paradigm shift. Do you know what a paradigm shift means?
It wasn't called Paradigm Shift then. It was Dirty Deeds, Steve.
None of it. You know the story I'm talking about, right?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Mox seems so off-put that Triple H had to make sure they knew what a paradigm shift
Yeah,
was.
I know.
That was right before they went out there, too. Insulting my intelligence. Yeah.
I know. Come on, Hunter.
Come on, Hunter.
I know what that means.
Yeah.
But again, that's just more interesting fantasy booking. It wasn't ever going to happen. They weren't going to put the briefcase on Dean Ambrose in 2013. But hey, it would have been cool.
I mean, dude, to be honest with you, we all know the whole point of the Shield was Vince saw these 3 guys as 3 individual main eventers that he was putting together as like a power trio so that eventually they would break up. They were not together very long at all.
A couple of years, roughly. Year and a half.
Yeah, year and a half. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't think Vince ever had it was never going to happen. But, looking back in hindsight, roll the dice on this guy that you are setting up to be a main eventer. Oh, boy, I love that idea. I think that's a really good one right there, man.
That'd be good. That'd be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Tons of fun. Before we continue on with the rest of our list, Larson, would you like to pay some bills?
Let's do it. This episode of Going in Raw is sponsored by BetterHelp Steve. It's like basically July. We're more than halfway through 2024, and I got to ask you.
Yeah.
Where has the year gone? It feels like yesterday it was February, and now we're almost July.
Oh, my gosh.
But with life moving so fast, it's really important to take the time to celebrate your wins and make the adjustments you need going forward. And that's something I definitely wasn't doing when I was dealing with severe anxiety in my mid-20s. At the time, I couldn't figure out what I was doing right, if I was doing anything right, or what I needed to do to move forward. That is, until I started going to therapy. Therapy allowed me to take a moment and learn the skills I needed to better cope with my anxiety and put me on the path, becoming, I hope, a better Larson.
That's right. Therapy can help you track your progress and set goals for the rest of 2024 and beyond. And if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. BetterHelp is completely online and designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited for your schedule. All you got to do to get started is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and then you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge.
So take a moment. Visit BetterHelp.com/raw today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp. HELP.com/raw. Raw.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to number 6. Randy Orton in 2010. Of course, this was the year that The Miz won it. Now, typically, The Miz is a guy, an up-and-coming guy. I mean, he'd been in the company like 4 years at that point, but a big chunk of that, he was with the tag team with Morrison. And I know there's a lot of people out there who like his cash-in on Randy Orton. The thing is, Miz never really felt like world championship guy. No. He still doesn't. Even when he won it in 2020, he felt even less like championship guy. And so when you walk into WrestleMania 27
in 2011, yeah.
He walks in against John Cena, and The Rock is hosting, and they already kind of have a feud going. And so the entire match is, I should say, The Miz in this match, even though he won thanks to The Rock, he's sort of overshadowed. And I remember watching that in my living room with you, and I think Hilton were there. And just looking at The Miz and being like, God, this guy is just trying to come off as, hey, I'm relevant too. And it just didn't work. You put Randy Orton in this spot because The Miz cashed in on Randy Orton, but you put Randy Orton in this spot and then he cashes in on somebody else. And he walks into WrestleMania as champion. Because remember, The Miz lost this title, the pay-per-view after WrestleMania.
Yeah, in a cage match, yeah.
Randy Orton walks into WrestleMania. For one thing, you finally got your Cena-Orton WrestleMania main event, which given their history, it's kind of bizarre that never happened. They had tons of matches, but they had one WrestleMania. Well, I don't know about, they had a triple threat with Triple H in it, but it didn't main event that year. That was the Undertaker Edge year. So you have Randy Orton walking in there, and all of a sudden The Rock is now like, whoa. This guy's kind of scary because I don't think, if I remember correctly, The Rock did not give one single shit about The Miz. He was like, whatever, it's The Miz.
Why would he?
But he's in there against the Legend Killer. I might get punted now, so I need to watch out.
Yeah,
and it just makes sense. At that point, it's not like Randy Orton is escaping WrestleMania main event with the win because of help of The Rock. No, he's an opportunist. He's like the opportunist guy.
Next to Edge.
Edge is the ultimate opportunist. Yeah. Randy Orton is the apex predator opportunist.
Or you could just say Randy Orton, the opportunistic guy. Apex predator, opportunistic guy.
What is just below apex? Because Edge is top. Apex opportunistic guy.
Apex the top.
Penultimate?
Penultimate.
You're right. Penultimate. Yeah. Penultimate opportunity. Anyways, Randy Orton walks into WrestleMania, and it's just I think it adds another dimension of, it's kind of like me always advocating for Punk going into Cena Rock 2 as a triple threat because he's represented there and he's a big deal, You put Randy Orton in there, you got this Randy Orton John Cena main event, but The Rock is hosting. Holy shit. There's a lot of fireworks that can happen there, a lot of different scenarios that you could look at there.
Exactly. So I guess that would mean then The Miz would take on CM Punk at WrestleMania 27, right?
Which I kind of like also because I saw that too. And it's like, you look back and I don't know when I think Punk's DVD was after all that.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, it was. Yeah. But, do that as a Mania match because they're two completely opposite personas and that's good. And then you get CM Punk and Miz sitting down 12 years later 14 years later and doing that YouTube video instead of Orton and Punk doing it. I'd like to see that. I'd like to see that
too. That'd be great.
Yeah, so there you go. All right, let's go ahead and move on to number 5. Chris Jericho in 2012.
So wasn't the Money in the Bank ladder match Chris Jericho's idea?
Yeah, and he never won it.
No,
hey, guys. I should win this match. So if you remember this one, John Cena won. Now, earlier in the show, Larson, I gave you the ingredients for what makes an ideal Money in the Bank winner. A young up-and-coming guy. Gal now, right? Bad guy, opportunistic guy, right? Does John Cena fit any of that criteria?
No, he was like the most dominant wrestler of his time.
What does he need Money in the Bank for then?
Sort of like Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar doesn't need Money in the Bank.
Right.
At least ask for a title match. John Cena does the same. He literally goes in the ring and says, I want that. and match
Yeah.
happens. That's happened before. So I want title. I want it. Therefore, match happens. He's done that countless times.
Of course you're going to do that. So he wins it. And I think 8 days later was Raw 1000. And he was like, CM Punk, I'm going to cash this in at the main event, Raw 1000. Then he does that and becomes the first person to... He wins by DQ. So it's like a failed cash-in, I guess.
Yeah, because title doesn't change hands on a disqualification.
Thanks to the Big Show. Whoa. Yeah, big turd. Just a big turd of a scenario. On the other hand, Chris Jericho, the guy who I think is credited with coming up with Money in the Bank. Yeah, finally, he actually gets to win Money in the Bank. This is when Jericho came back as the guy who doesn't talk.
Yeah, that was in advance of his match with Punk anyways, at WrestleMania 28.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So you could have done something with all that. Yeah, it's kind of weird that Jericho... instead, Jericho, because this was the match for... Pretty sure this was the ladder match for the WWE contract, not the World Heavyweight Championship contract. But then he got into a feud with the World Heavyweight Champion guy. I mean, I think this is the time when Raw and SmackDown were not real separate brands, because SmackDown was just a turd show, and so it was whatever. But yeah, he started feuding over on the other, the other title. But yeah, the idea of Jericho and Punk and the WWE Championship sort of, being part of that Money in the Bank thing. I don't know exactly. Maybe Jericho would just be like, Punk, I'm gonna cash in on you at WrestleMania, and then that motivates the match. I don't know. They got there anyways because it's writing. You don't.
It was the Mania before that they had.
Oh, it was the Mania before that. Okay, yeah. Okay, so right before that. So yeah, do you revisit that feud then?
Exactly. Yeah, totally.
Good stuff. Yeah. All right, let's move on. Figure it out. Number 4. This one, honestly, could be number 1.
I think any of these last 4 you can make the case to be number 1. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, except for number 2. We'll get to that in a second.
No,
Samoa Joe.
Number 2 is a strong case to be number 1. Yeah, Samoa Joe, number 4 in 2018.
Was there any iteration of this list where number 2 is number 1?
No.
There should have been, to be honest with you. Yeah, Samoa Joe, 2018. Braun Strowman won it and basically just looked like an absolute idiot.
One of the most embarrassing several cash-in attempts.
Remember when
the time when Brock got the
thing?
briefcase and chucked it up the ramp.
That thing traveled so fucking far, though.
Oh, it was from the ring to the entryway. It was crazy.
Right. And Braun's like, God damn it, now I gotta waddle back over there.
And so then he cashes in a cage match, and it ends in a DQ. Hell in a Cell, I believe.
Hell in a Cell! How does Hell in a Cell end in a DQ? Unless it's a literal horror movie villain, it should not end in a no contest or DQ.
Agreed.
It's okay if it's a horror movie villain in Sacramento under red lights.
Yes. It's very strict criteria in which a disqualification in a Hell in a Cell match is appropriate and the right and correct call by a referee.
Correct. Absolutely.
Correct. So in 2018, you mentioned Braun Strowman won it. The champions at the time were AJ Styles, which Joe's got plenty of history with AJ. I think they feuded around this time for the WWE title anyways.
Yeah, Joe went to his house and was trying to talk to, what's AJ's wife's
Wendy,
name?
I believe.
Wendy, yeah.
And then Brock Lesnar was champion over on Raw, and their feud the year prior in 2017, thanks to Samoa Joe, was awesome.
So good. Oh, it was so good.
The opportunities to revisit good, interesting stuff with Samoa, and gosh darn it, who's more legitimate with the Money in the Bank briefcase than Samoa Joe?
Dude, this one hurts that he didn't get it. It really does.
It just makes too much sense, and it boggles the mind why it never happened.
Vince.
Well, yeah, it's Vince.
That shit would have happened if Triple H was in charge.
Probably.
Oh my God, are you kidding me? Oh, absolutely.
Probably. I'll tell you one thing: Samoa Joe would not have been embarrassed with his failed Money in the Bank cash-in attempts.
Nobody would have been throwing that 50 yards.
No, because Joe would have thrown them.
You
don't think Samoa Joe would have picked up and thrown Brock Lesnar? Guarantee you he would.
He'd have thrown at Paul Heyman and be like, listen to me, Paul Heyman. Remember he did that? Oh, that was so
I backed him in the corner? That was so good.
Man. Yeah, that was pretty awesome.
Quiet.
Yeah,
that was so good. Anyways, yeah, Samoa Joe should win Money in the Bank. Mm-hmm. Braun Strowman's reign, if you will, as Mr. Money in the Bank is forgettable.
I mean,
and
also
downright
embarrassing. Not surprising, though, that Shane McMahon then came back and called him stupid.
Yeah, that was after this.
Yeah, it was. Exactly. All right, let's move on to number 3.
3.
Kevin Owens in 2017 because Baron Corbin won it and was humiliated in his cash-in.
Lost via roll-up during a cash-in attempt on an episode of SmackDown. This was after he was, I believe, humiliated by John Cena at SummerSlam of that year.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm legitimately... I would love to just understand some of the decision-making here with Vince McMahon.
Oh, yeah.
Why Baron Corbin? You and I like Baron Corbin, and I think Baron Corbin has traditionally been one of the worst used compared to what his talent is, because his talent level, I think, is really off the charts.
Yeah.
But the way Vince McMahon seemed to be fascinated by humiliating this guy.
Repeatedly,
over and over again. And he literally used Money in the Bank to humiliate the guy. And meanwhile, you've got Kevin Owens, a guy that Vince McMahon seemingly loved so much to the point where he allowed him to headbutt him until he was like bleeding.
Mm-hmm.
Was right there. And what a perfect heel to have that Money in the Bank would have been Kevin Owens.
Yeah, so this is around the time that Kevin Owens was U.S. champ. He was feuding through that summer with AJ Styles. Kind of a forgettable feud because, for whatever reason, the matches just didn't deliver.
Yeah, they were bizarre.
But they were trading the U.S. title throughout that summer. But you have Kevin Owens coming off losing the Universal title to Goldberg because of Chris Jericho before WrestleMania that year. And imagine if that just really sticks with him. Mm-hmm. And he looks at this U.S. title, is like, yeah, this is great, but gosh, I want that Universal title back. It was humiliating how I lost it to Goldberg.
It was.
And so he wins. He's U.S. champ, Money in the Bank briefcase holder. Champions at the time were Jinder Mahal.
Oh, yeah.
On SmackDown, Brock over on Raw.
Mm-hmm.
And I know Jinder was a heel, so I don't know if you want to have Kevin Owens cash in on him, but gosh, imagine if Kevin Owens tried to cash in on Brock Lesnar to get that Universal title back. That's the title he lost. That's one he should go after.
I don't remember exactly how many times this would have been, but it wouldn't surprise me if during Jinder's reign, I know he had the bulk of that reign, I think, was in a feud against Randy Orton.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are moments where Jinder gets some sort of shitty win, and then afterwards, to get the heat back, Randy Orton gives an RKO. Boom. Cash in right there.
Yeah.
Cash in right there. And then you sort of look, man, you and I both like Jinder, but that should never have happened without a proper build for Jinder Mahal.
Yeah.
To make sure.
It did Jinder a massive disservice.
It did. It really did. But you can correct that all by having Kevin Owens cash in on him. And then, boom, you're good. Because if he was U.S. champion, like, he'd be staying on SmackDown anyways as WWE champion.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that could have been really cool. Cashing in on Brock, as we've seen with Seth Rollins, cashing in on Brock, that'd be scary as hell.
It would be scary, but it'd be fascinating to see Kevin Owens try to do it.
Ooh, that'd be scary. All right, man, let's go ahead and dive into number 2. I know this is, a personal choice for you and something that you hold near and dear to your heart.
Well, not near and dear. This is something that has weighed heavy on me for the last 4 years.
Sticks in your craw. Number
That's the way of putting
2.
2.
Go ahead.
AJ Styles in 2020. Steve, who won it that year?
Oh, yeah. Otis, as I predicted in our big predictions challenge back then.
And what made it all the more heartbreaking is AJ had that briefcase literally in his hands. And it slipped out. I don't know how he has those gloves on. They're like football receivers' gloves, so they're tacky.
This is one of my favorite cinematic matches.
It's fantastic. The whole match is great.
Mad World type thing where they climb Titan Towers. I thought it was great. AJ and Daniel Bryan fighting in Vince's office. Regardless of what you think of Vince, he's a piece of shit. We all know that. It was a funny moment. And so, yeah, they all climb it. But it seemed, I don't know, I think in advance of this, it seemed obvious that, number one, Vince had a bizarre fascination with Otis. And given that this was a comedy match, basically, and that's all it could be, it seemed natural that a comedy wrestler would get it. And at the time, Otis was very much that. But the dynamic between you and I that you picked AJ, this is an all-time. This is probably like a number 2 all-time going in Raw moment after the Enforcer winning WrestleMania on accident. That AJ getting the briefcase, and I this is clipped in its entirety on Friendo Club Wrestling. AJ getting the briefcase.
And me celebrating prematurely.
And you celebrating, and then it falling, and you just collapsing, and me erupting because Otis got it because he couldn't climb the ladder. He couldn't get his arms up.
Well, they established, too, that he was scared of heights.
Right, yeah. That being said, the handling of that was absolutely awful. He ended up in a series of comedic skits, losing that Money in the Bank to The Miz. The Miz ended up cashing in only for Bobby Lashley
to
beat the shit out of The Miz, which was awesome. But yeah, that was in terms of like what would have been best for everybody involved. Of course, it was AJ Styles. Absolutely, 1,000%. Yeah,
of course.
But in that moment, my God, that could not have worked out better for us.
Heartbreak. That's what it is. I'm not talking about Shawn Michaels either. So the champs at the time were Drew McIntyre. So this is in the midst of the pandemic era. So Drew had won at WrestleMania, beat Brock, and then Braun Strowman beat Goldberg for the Universal title.
Okay.
At WrestleMania. So AJ against either of them potentially in a feud, or just the idea that AJ's got that briefcase, can cash in whenever on either of them. That's potential to be some good stuff. Of course, Braun would lose the belt to The Fiend at SummerSlam. And that's when Roman came back.
Yeah.
But just the way they booked Otis leading up to it, especially after he won the Money in the Bank briefcase, it just didn't make sense. He didn't seem like a believable person to cash in on anybody.
No,
he was treated too much like a comedic wrestler still at the time.
Yeah.
And it just strained credibility that he was going to go into the ring against Drew McIntyre and beat him.
Yeah, that didn't make any sense. Yeah.
Whereas with AJ, he's a highly decorated and accomplished wrestler. It's possible. Takes one phenomenal forearm, bang, new champion.
Who did Miz cash in on?
Miz cashed in on Drew McIntyre. He had Lashley beat up Drew.
That's right.
And then cashed in on him.
Okay, and then Lashley and Drew picked up that feud. Okay.
And then Lashley beat Miz for it, and then Drew and Lashley feuded over the belt.
Yeah. I did like that episode when Miz was like on the run from Lashley. That was kind of cool because he had the title, and they were like, "Dude, you're fighting Lashley. Like you agreed to this."
Oh yeah.
I'm not gonna do it, and they made him do it. That was kind of cool.
And Lashley annihilated him.
Yeah, it was awesome.
That was the only satisfying thing about that whole story.
It was, yeah. But you got to put AJ in that mix. Like that's what you do.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's go ahead and drop our number one. Seth Rollins in 2022, because the guy that did win it was Austin Theory. Again, Vince going with the guy, and I get that maybe he saw in Austin Theory what Seth Rollins had back in 2014, but the big difference was Austin Theory had not established himself the way that Seth Rollins had as a character. He was this guy at that point still. And the bizarre mentor-protege relationship with Vince McMahon, which was fucking weird and even weirder now. And he ended up, talk about ultimate humiliation, cashing in on the United States Championship and failing.
Who was Seth Rollins at the time.
Right.
And failing to cash in on for the U.S. title. But here's the thing. This is what really makes it interesting. Let's go back to the Rumble 2022. What was the match for Seth Rollins? It was against Roman Reigns. That's when Seth came through the crowd in the shield gear, the shield theme, and just drove Roman so crazy during that match that Roman got himself DQ'd. It was his only loss, not a pinfall loss, obviously. Like in a one-on-one match during his entire run as champion was to Seth. And now imagine Seth gets that briefcase and is just haunting Roman.
Yeah.
All over the place. Like, Seth is one of the few people on the roster with that briefcase. You think, oh, yeah, he can cash in on Roman.
Mm-hmm.
That was not Austin Theory, though.
No.
There is no universe at that time in 2022 where Austin Theory would be seen as a credible threat to Roman Reigns.
Yeah, because wasn't it Roman, and then didn't Brock have the other one at the time?
No, coming out of Money in the Bank 2022, Roman had both titles already.
He had both titles
because he beat Brock at WrestleMania before that to unify the titles.
It didn't make a lick of sense. Seth Rollins would have been a perfect choice. You're absolutely right. Yeah, and then if he gets that in the 2022, which would have been probably June of 2022.
Yeah, June or July. Yeah.
Then that takes you into WrestleMania 39 with the briefcase.
Yeah, Roman versus Cody.
Mm-hmm.
Seth there. Hey, maybe I'll cash in.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Repeat what he did. Mania 31, 8 years prior.
What did Seth do at 39? That wasn't that long ago.
No, I know, but our memories are terrible.
Yeah, it is. Let's see here. 30. What's the Roman numeral for 1X? Let's see if this works. Oh, here we go. Nope, that's not it.
It was, gosh, it's on the tip of my tongue, too. It was him and, no.
Logan
Him
Paul.
and Logan Paul.
Yeah.
No.
Could have done something else there. Yeah.
I mean, he could still have that match with Logan Paul and then still have the briefcase.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Just do both things because he wrestled night 1. Main event, obviously, night 2 with Roman and Cody.
Yeah. Yeah, but okay, here's the thing, though. That's such a tough one because nobody's cashing in on Roman.
I know. But there's a few, like I said, there's a few people that would pose a real credible threat.
It would make things much more interesting than Austin Theory.
Storyline perspective, it'd make things a lot more interesting. And
I agree.
Seth is credible.
Yeah, I
Theory
agree.
at the time wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Anyways. So yeah, all good choices there. Let us know who you guys think should have won Money in the Bank instead of somebody else in the comments below. Be sure to hit that thumbs up. Be sure to hit that subscribe and notify bell. Thanks for watching, everybody. We appreciate it. Till next time, we'll see you around.
Goodbye.